Oh, about one time a year we get very lucky. We always love when we have commissioners of leagues on. And this year we've had the good fortune of having Roger Goodell will come on now for the second time, which I always enjoy. He's the NFL commissioner, elected back in 2006, just given a 5-year extension. And our commissioner, Roger Goodell, is joining us. Commissioner, how are you this morning?
I'm great, Colin. How you doing?
You know, I'm great. I'm watching a piece of film this morning on Tom Brady, and he's talking on his documentary about he watches the first Super Bowl he went to, and he said, God, I didn't know what I was doing. And I sit and I think to myself, well, you were pretty darn good. You won a Super Bowl. If Roger Goodell today could go back to Roger Goodell first year as a commissioner, you've dealt with real things here, social issues, negotiations, owner squabbles. What would today's Roger Goodell tell the first year's commissioner? What have you truly learned, do you think, the biggest gap, the biggest leap for you in learning in your job in all these years?
You know, Colin, I think you got to learn to expect the unexpected. And, it's probably having been in the league for almost 25 years prior to that, I thought that I had probably seen most everything, and that clearly was not the case. So you can't go into this assuming that your learning is in any way stopped or even slowed down. And as you point out, there are a lot of issues we've had to deal with. I think, as the Super Bowl gets bigger and bigger, I think more people want to share in that platform. More people want to share in that opportunity to get news, and we're aware of that. And what we try to do is try the best you can to keep the focus on the field and the game. This is a great matchup. Once again, I think the country will unite around this game and have a wonderful afternoon and evening, and I think it'll be great for us.
Listen, no business is the success is not linear. Even Tom Hanks can have a bad movie. Ratings go up and down. You're a very healthy league. The Pro Bowl yesterday was up 28%. You have multiple bidders, including us here at Fox on Thursday Night Football. The league is vibrant. There is no question. Your streaming money. Silicon Valley is now interested in being a partner with the NFL, but the ratings were down this year. What's the reason? Do you have a feeling? Could I suggest perhaps that you put the game on too many days? London, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. Is that legit? Do you have a reason why the numbers are down a little?
Well, the first thing, Colin, we don't eliminate any thought and any theory. We analyze all of them. We look at them. To your oversaturation point, I don't buy it when our season is 26 weeks. The next lowest number of weeks is 36. Mm-hmm. We play on 3 nights and days of a week, and as you point out, I don't think against the other leagues you could probably find a day of the week where one of those games aren't on. So I don't necessarily buy the oversaturation, but whenever you're adding, as we do the last couple of weeks of the season, which we've done for decades. We've had Saturday games once college football is over. You're always going to see a ratings decrease there. That's not unusual for us. And we want to strengthen, obviously, the Sunday afternoon packages, the Sunday night packages, the Monday night package, and our new Thursday night package. And that's the trick. But I'm not buying that it's necessarily oversaturation, but it can be a contributing factor, and we've got to do everything to focus in on that and analyze it.
Did you ever think it was unfair? The NBA is known as a players' league, yet would not allow their players to kneel. You are seen as friendly to the owners and the system, not as friendly, perhaps, as the media suggests, to the players, and yet you gave them freedom to have a social activism. Was there ever a moment 6, 8, 12 weeks ago when you felt to yourself, it's interesting how we're being labeled because we're actually allowing players to do things that the player-friendly NBA is not?
Well, Colin, I'd add to that. First, I don't think like that because it doesn't pay me to do that. People characterize us, but I think what our focus is on is just developing that relationship and continuing to listen to our players. And our history is that the players, particularly for me as commissioner, have been instrumental in us making real changes in what we do. You mentioned, the changes that we made. My cleats would be one that I put in there that was driven by players particularly Brandon Marshall, who started that for me, and then it evolved into a place that allows the players to express themselves.
Yeah.
You saw what happened this season with the social issues, which, we had unprecedented dialogue between our owners and our players in this office of the league. And it's led to a better understanding, and I think something that's going to help us improve our communities. And then I'd add a third one to that. It would just be celebrations. The celebrations was something that came out of over 100 phone calls between either myself or Troy Vincent, our head of football operations, between us and the players to understand how we should change it, what we should change. And, we always put the player input into our decision making, and it's actually been very beneficial to us.
The first sporting event I ever watched was the 1972 Super Bowl. That was Washington and George Allen, the late great football coach.
Remember it well.
Yes, it was, and it was Garo Yepremian making the.
Yep.
I think it was 14-7. The Dolphins won. Bob Greasy, Warfield, Zonka. I mean, I'm dating myself. I watched it on a black and white TV in the coast of Washington, and it's the first sporting event I watched. And but something has happened to football, and I am a football guy first. I've always said that. In the last couple of years, as a consumer, I am often confused with what a catch is and what a catch is not. Now, I love football and I know the rules. And most of the time, I understand football. But about 5 or 6 years ago, it started with a Calvin Johnson catch back of the end zone, Detroit, Chicago. He caught the ball 2 feet down. He pressed the ball on the ground, and they disallowed it. And from that moment on, I now feel that after great catches, I have to wait and watch a replay. Are you not somewhat concerned that a consumer like myself who loves the game and feels that he knows it is often left confused on what a catch is and what it isn't in the NFL today?
Colin, I agree with you 100%. I'd even go further. I'm not just somewhat concerned. I am concerned. We just had 5 Hall of Fame receivers and several coaches come in just 2 weeks ago to focus on the catch-no-catch rule, how we bring clarity. And this is where the balance comes in, Colin. We've had other examples of this over the years where you want there to be clarity from an officiating standpoint, a coaching and a player standpoint. They know what it is, what it isn't. And so they draft the rule, the competition committee looks at it, they bring it to the membership, and they want that clarity. I think here you might have clarity in a large element of it, but then what happens is it's not the rule that people really want.
Right.
And one of our Hall of Fame receivers said it well to me when we looked at this a couple of years ago. Fans want catches. And
Thank you. Yes.
And I think what we've got to try to do, and we had a really good discussion for over 3 hours and looking at a lot of tape, and we've got some ideas of how to bring some clarity to that. It's particularly in the going to the ground that I think has created a lot of the confusion, because it's a different rule when you're going to the ground than when you're on the sideline or in the end zone. And I think that's what we're focusing on, and the competition committee is going to be bringing this up in February and March, and I hope we'll be able to address this in a way that will bring more clarity and, frankly, more excitement to this.
Roger Goodell, NFL Commissioner, joining us on The Herd. I live on the West Coast now. I used to live in Connecticut at another place, and when I moved out to the West, the Niners, the Chargers, now we have a team in Los Angeles, the Rams and the Chargers. Are you concerned? I know that ideally, Commissioner, you don't want teams to ever leave, but that's idealism. We know that there are ownership changes and stadium issues. Do you look back now, is it possible that you move too many teams too quickly out west? Is that possible? Because it feels like to me the Chargers don't have much footing in Los Angeles right now.
Well, I don't know if I would agree, Colin. Listen, the process of relocation took, 10, 15 years in each of those cases, trying to resolve stadium issues. There were just lengthy efforts to try to get those done. And yes, they did come in a shorter period of time, in part because the 3 teams were seeking the Los Angeles opportunity. And so, yes, we had 3 relocations essentially in essentially a year-and-a-half basis. And that happened in the 90s also, unfortunately. But, you never want to see that, as you point out. I think you obviously go through a transition when that happens because you're playing. We have two teams playing in temporary facilities right now, and that's you actually could argue three.
Yeah.
And so that's something that does impact you. It impacts on our fan relationship because listen, that's an important bond between the fans and the team, and you're really hesitant to ever do that.
Yes.
And it wasn't after more than decades of all-out efforts to try to get that resolved. We couldn't get that done, but I think those teams, both the Rams and the Chargers, are going to be incredibly successful in Los Angeles. I think we see that. It's going to take some time because they haven't had a franchise there in over 20 years. And that's part of the effort of marketing yourself and having that available. But we saw the reaction. I was there for the playoff game with the Rams on the wild card weekend, and it was fantastic atmosphere. And that was in a temporary facility. When we were, earlier that day, went over to see the new facility. You're not going to believe it, Colin. It's spectacular.
Oh, I know.
It's set a new standard, and that's going to bring excitement when that stadium hits and the two teams are playing there.
No, it's less than 15 minutes from my house. Commissioner Roger Goodell. A couple of things here. The NBA has been almost hyper-progressive on the opportunities of gambling moving forward. You are now, the league is embracing a team moving to Las Vegas. The cynic in me says it's great for money. I think the Vegas situation, stadium-wise, is much better than the Oakland situation. And I would not deny that Adam Silver's league will have another emotional attachment if you can bet on games, and the league is for it. But are you truly comfortable with gambling in the NFL if there is a relationship? Where do you stand on the comfort level of that?
Well, Colin, we've been unequivocal in the point of that the integrity of our game is the most important issue. And we want to make sure that our fans know that what they're seeing play out in front of them, whether they're in the stadium or watching on a device or watching at home on a television set, is that is not influenced by anything. And so that is our number one issue, is make sure we maintain that integrity of the game. Whatever changes occur, and we all know there's an evolution of what's going on in gambling, I think, throughout the world, but clearly here in the States.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court is now going to be hearing this issue. So we have to be prepared for any outcome. I don't think anyone would have imagined 10 years ago we would have had a franchise in Las Vegas, and that's going to require us to think about some of our policies and differently. But we recognize this issue, but that's the bar that we're making sure that we don't in any way hinder, which is the integrity of our game.
By the way, I see Vince McMahon wants to, in wrestling lexicon, wants to do the old turnbuckle treatment to the NFL. He wants to go up against you and have a new league, the XFL. Didn't work well the first time. What was your initial response when you saw that story?
I didn't really see much of the story, to be honest with you, Colin. I saw that they announced it last week. I've heard that they were thinking about doing something, and let's see how things play out. I mean, I think it's still a couple of years before they get there. Obviously, we've had many spring leagues, competing leagues that have propped up over decades. From our standpoint, we focus on doing what we do best and making sure we improve our game, and that's where our focus is.
Yeah. Well, Vince is an interesting character. I will say this, as much as people lamented the XFL, Commissioner, they brought in some camera views that you guys use today. I absolutely love your new camera behind the quarterback, so I can watch how a play develops. I would give the XFL a tip of the cap on that. That is my favorite new thing in the NFL, that technology. And for some reason, you guys have always been willing to embrace new stuff. Maybe other sports not as much. So we can all kind of mock Vince McMahon. But that new camera angle, by the way, in your league offices, was it negative or positive?
I think it was positive. Listen, Colin, to your point, one of the things we've, I think, been known for and we take great pride in is innovation. And innovation, whether it's in the rules, whether it's in how we present our games. We spend an awful lot of time on game presentation to try to take out downtime in our games, and we had tremendous success in that, but we think we can do a lot better. And so we continue to do that. On the presentation of the game, it's one of the reasons why we rely so much on our broadcast partners, and that they bring that innovation. They're spectacular at it. They're the best of the best, and when they have ideas, they bring them to us, and frankly, most of the time we love it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we buy into every one of their innovations, but that type of thing where you're getting a new camera angle, we wanted to see what the reaction of the fans was, and that was very positive.
I'm watching some of the Nick Foles stuff. You just didn't get to see a game like this year. I can literally see what Nick Foles is trying to read downfield. It's incredible.
But it's to your point, it's that innovation. It's giving a perspective to the fan that they didn't have before, and that's what we drive ourselves on. What is it that the fan wants that we are delivering on, and figuring out how to do that? And that innovation can come from other sports, other leagues, from our partners. We don't walk around here saying it's got to come from us. We'll take it from anywhere it comes.
Commissioner, I appreciate you coming on for 15 minutes. I know you're a busy guy, and thank you so much.
Glad to talk to you, Colin. Have a great week.
All right. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, and here's Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Rob Gronkowski was back at Patriots practice this weekend.
Oh, he was? Okay.
Yes, but he's still in concussion protocol, but it appears all signs point to that he will be available for the Super Bowl, so he will be playing. He is off limits for interviews still, but was in the locker room during the interview portion. So people are seeing Rob Gronkowski again.
Well, you can make the argument that after Tom Brady, he's the best player in the game. Fletcher Cox of Philadelphia is really good. So I like, whenever we get these big games, I want to see, I don't want to see an NBA final and Kyrie Irving's out and Klay Thompson.
Right.
Like, I want to see Gronk play because we're looking at history. There's only so many of these Super Bowls, and he's probably the second or third best player after Tom Brady.
I'm just nervous for him, though, because it seems like he is so fragile. And even if he is back, the first time he's hit, it's just going to be nerve-wracking.
Remember Jose Canseco, how big and strong he was? He was hurt all the time. It is remarkable sometimes, the biggest, strongest athletes.
A little different.
Well, Mark McGuire was often hurt, and Mark was big, strong. It's always interesting to me, the guys that get hurt and the guys that don't. And some guys are fragile. I've always said LeBron's thing is like, dude, could you twist an ankle? I mean, some guys just don't get hurt and some guys do. And Gronk is as big and athletic as anybody in the league. He is hurt constantly.
And some guys get hurt all the time, and they still play through it, like Tom Brady, who had 12 stitches in his hand during the AFC Championship, but he has gotten those stitches removed now. So it'll be interesting to see. He was great with the stitches. How's he going to be without the stitches? Can they open up again? Is it fully healed?
Yeah.
How's he gonna feel?
Yeah.
But those stitches are out. And finally, a lot has come out now over the weekend about Michigan State, and since the gymnastics story came out with all of those women who unfortunately had to go through a lot. And since it's been uncovered that there's been violence against women, sexual assault in both programs for basketball and football. And Tom Izzo was asked about this over the weekend, and here is his reaction to it.
I've cooperated with every investigation, every one. And I will continue to cooperate with every investigation, every one. It's been hard to focus in on basketball because when I do, I feel guilty. There's so many things that you don't know, and I feel guilty talking about anything else than those women that I watched. And that's about, I'm sure it was draining at the end for me. I was also emotional because I'm an emotional guy, and I was proud of the job they did, and I hope that I hope people rally around them, and I hope we'll rally around people that need us.
Yeah, something doesn't seem right here. And I have to say, when I was watching those gymnasts, and there was over 100 of them, watching some of them talk and tell their stories now, I full-on cried during a lot of it. And I'm just really happy that all this is coming out. It just reminds me that it is so important for these types of things to keep happening, because how many women did it take for people to finally take it seriously and start investigating? And only now, because so many women came forward, are we looking into the basketball and football programs as well. And it shouldn't take that many people to take it seriously. Like, when will it only take one person telling their story? But there's such a stigma still against it that you can't come forward or you'll be the one shunned. And I just hope that this continues to happen so it's normal for you to come forward and have people take you seriously.
Yeah, this story started, to me, when I first heard about it, it felt a little like Penn State, which was, we've got a really bad person within otherwise a wonderful sports community, and it's starting to feel like Baylor, where it was a cultural issue and it goes far beyond one person. I always fall back on this. If somebody is in your athletic department for 20 years, nobody saw anything, nobody knew anything for 20 years, I don't buy that at Baylor. I don't buy it at Penn State. I don't buy it at Michigan State. I don't believe that you can have a criminal to this level for 20 years in your athletic department and nobody knew and nobody covered up and they were all shocked when it was uncovered. I just don't buy that. I didn't buy it, by the way. Didn't buy it at Penn State. Don't buy it at Baylor. I don't buy it at Michigan State.
Well, people obviously knew, and it was clearly more than one person. We have even situations where it was people on the team or assistant coaches participating in this type of behavior. So like you said, it's a cultural thing where it's just accepted, which then I understand why so many of the victims didn't come forward, because they weren't going to be listened to anyways. So why does it take consistently 60-something women, not just in this situation, but in many others, for anyone to actually investigate and hold people accountable? That's just wrong.
Yeah, the whole thing is just really, really troubling on a lot of levels. Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
I've got to let you hear a couple of pieces of tape that came out. It's the difference in this Super Bowl between Tom Brady and Nick Foles. And I'm going to play a piece of tape. And it is the Grand Canyon. Obviously, we know their history, but they both unveiled sort of a truth about themselves, and I'm going to let you hear that coming up next. You've heard me talk about the amazing shave that I get from my Dollar Shave Club razor. Well, they want you to get it too, and they are offering you a very unique opportunity. For just $5, you can join the club. They will give you their best razor for $5 and travel size versions of their shave butter, I use it, and body cleanser, I use it. And then after that, replacement cartridges ship for just a couple of bucks a month. Basically, it's your entry in. It's the Dollar Shave Club starter set. These are high, fine, premium ingredients delivered to you. No more CVS, no more store. They deliver the gel, the body wash, the razor for just $5 a month. All you have to do, go to dollarshaveclub.com/Colin, dollarshaveclub.com/COLIN.